Welcome back to True Story with John Gibson. Today is a really special guest. He is an Olympic bronze medalist. He is a BJJ Black belt, no-gi world champion, husband, father, very civic-minded person as well. Adam Wheeler.
Thanks for having me.
Man, completely my pleasure. So I covered a lot there just in the intro. But before I kind of dive into just some of the, some of your lifetime experiences and highlights and stuff, I just wanted to kind of share some broad context with some of the audience, and for you, for your benefit as well. So, you sort of became on my peripheral maybe 15, 20 years ago almost. I grew up wrestling and I found Greco-Roman wrestling. So that was sort of how I first was introduced to you. And then you've just gone on and lived this amazing life, man. I kind of joked offline. I really do kind of relate you to like Captain America. I just cannot believe that you exist in some ways. You're an really inspiring human being. So before I kind of jump into some wrestling and BJJ, all that cool stuff, I am really curious because I haven't read your book yet. Believe to Achieve.
Yep.
Yeah.
Believe and Achieve. Yeah.
Awesome. But I want to know a little bit about you, just sort of like growing up, man, like just your foundation. Did you have like parents that supported like giving to your community, athletics? Like, were you an Eagle Scout? What was that like?
No, quite the opposite actually. And I kind of explained that in my book.
Yeah.
I grew up pretty poor in Lancaster, California. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but it's kind of a desert suburb in LA where, I always describe it as the people that can't afford to live in LA, but work in LA would drive there.
Okay.
Single parent. I know my dad and I saw my dad a couple times a year, but really 2-3 times a year I'd see my dad. I was raised by my mom. 95%. I think I'm the first. I had some athletic family members, uncles and some cousins and stuff like that. One of my cousins and my brother are actually both black belts in Jiu Jitsu also and have done really well.
Okay.
And but I think I was kind of the first athlete outside of maybe a high school level at best, to my knowledge, in my family. I had an uncle who boxed in the Marine Corps. He was in Vietnam and he was a boxer and, tough guy.
Yeah.
But I think, especially my immediate family, I think I was the first athlete, and I can't think of another blood family member who was an athlete really at that level before me. So it was, I was kind of new to opening those doors in our family.
Well, and it's interesting knowing that, learning that too, because, you found wrestling ultimately. But one thing I was a little unclear about, and I admire about your wrestling career so much, because you're elite. I mean, you're a bronze medalist in Greco-Roman wrestling, 2008 Beijing Games. You're an elite, and no one can ever take that away from you. But what I admired was you're somebody that you weren't like this phenom overnight success. If you look at your record, you worked it, and you went through the Navy. We talk about some of that if you want to share that experience, that journey. But like, your guy is like 5th place, 3rd place, 1st place. Like, you earned it, and it's really, really interesting career. Can you share maybe a little about kind of that journey, I guess?
Yeah. So I started wrestling in high school. I never knew anything about it. I've said this on other podcasts and stuff, but I know I've never said it here, but I went out for the wrestling team not really knowing what wrestling was. I saw a flyer at my school. I was a freshman. Very first practice, I was just like, I'm going to wrestle. My mom, she just kind of was like, she knew I was kind of a modest kid. I was chubby, and she just kind of couldn't believe it. And she's like, you know what they have to wear, right? And
right.
It was kind of like her reaction. And I remember her just, okay. And very first practice, they wanted to just kind of test us to see, our fitness level. And they had us run a mile on the track. And I could not run one lap without stopping, like legitimately. I was probably 205 pounds, but just pure fat, freshman, but not that tall yet either. Like, I hadn't matured early or anything. And then they had us try to do push-ups, and I legitimately could not do one real push-up, to where I went all the way down, all the way up. Like my core was weak. My body was weak. You know, I grew up in Lancaster. It was kind of rough. So I thought like I was tough, you know, like hanging out with these tough guys, and we fought all the time and stuff. I thought I was tough, but I learned later that I was actually pretty mentally weak. If it got hard, I would quit. You know, when I ran that first lap, 3/4 of the way through, it was hard. I quit. I couldn't do push-ups. I quit. You know, initially that was kind of my mindset. And anyway, my freshman year, I was the worst kid on our team at our school. I was 1 win, 15 losses at JV. My only win, I don't know if it was luck or what it was, but it was, I knew one move, you know?
Yeah.
And I had 2 wrestling coaches, and one of them I could kind of talk about a little bit later, but became like a really big mentor to me, still to this day. The other one was a little younger. My head coach coached him in high school as well. And he was just hard-nosed, you know, what you think of American wrestling. That's kind of how I remember him.
Sure.
I only knew him my freshman and maybe sophomore year, but at the end of my freshman year, he was talking to all the kids on our team, telling them, hey, you should try this wrestling camp and this wrestling camp. And I walked up to him, I said, what camp should I try? And he just looked at me and he said, you're not ready for a wrestling camp yet. Oh. And some kids would be like, oh man, like, do I quit, you know, or what?
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, that lit the fire under me. And I went home. I don't know if it was that day, but relatively around the same time. And like I said, I grew up poor. There was a family fitness, which was eventually turned into a 24-hour fitness 1 mile from my house. And I told my mom that I want a gym membership. And at that time, she's like, I can't afford, it was $15 a month. I can't afford a gym membership for you. I told her, I said, I'll pay for it. I promise you I'll earn the money. And I did. Like, I used to go mow yards and do all that kind of stuff. That's how I had to buy my own. She bought me, I had everything I need. So I don't want to like make it sound bad.
Sure.
But if I wanted nice clothes and different things like that, I worked and I mowed yards and I chopped wood and I did all that stuff. And so long story short, she signed me up for the gym. I paid the monthly membership. And from that last day till the first day of next season, I'd get home from school, run to the gym, or, you know, run, walk, whatever I could, lift weights for like an hour and a half, 2 hours. I fell in love with it. And then I would run back. I wasn't old enough to drive yet. I was, 14 or whatever. And next year I went back as a sophomore year, most improved wrestler that year. But I was messing up though. I was kind of a knucklehead. I was getting good at wrestling and weightlifting and stronger and probably maturing a little bit. And then, but I ended up quitting school. I dropped out of school.
Wow.
Halfway through the wrestling season, maybe 2/3 of the way through the wrestling season, I failed out for grades because I was missing too much school. I was working hard, but I didn't really understand what hard work was. I was lifting hard and all that, but I was also going out with my friends afterwards and partying and staying up till 1 a.m. and sneaking in. And, my mom she was working 2 jobs at the time. So she was gone a lot. And, the wrestling coach I told you about that became a mentor in my life actually got me back into school. He fought for me to go to school. He took me to a counselor, had a meeting, and, following year, I kept up the work ethic, and he knew what was going on. He's like, if I don't get involved in this guy's life, he's going to go down the wrong path. And Saturdays, he was like, let's go. We're going for a hike. Man. And so, and we would hike. Some of these hikes were like hard. He was in shape, and then Sundays, he's like, all right, I'll be back tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. So we'd go on the hikes like 5 a.m. Saturday. So and then he'd be like, all right, I'll be back tomorrow at 7:30 to pick you up for church. I'm like, church? Like, I didn't grow up going to church, And so he picked me up and we started going to church and working out. And I kept up with my weightlifting and training wrestling. And it was like I became obsessed around end of sophomore, junior year. And junior, senior year, I became the first ever league champion in my high school and had a 44-3 senior year record, but I wasn't getting recruited by anyone. My college grades weren't good, or my high school grades weren't good.
Wow.
So that's why I chose to go the military route
Interesting.
out of high school. So yeah.
Now, thank you for sharing all that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And what an awesome mentor. He's still with you, still alive to this day, that coach?
He is. Yeah.
Awesome.
Actually, 2 years ago, I think 2 or 3 maybe, I was inducted into the California Wrestling Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
And he came and presented me my plaque and stuff. Like, I got to choose who. So
Yeah.
I've had many mentors,
Yeah.
and this story started over again when I got to the military. I kind of skipped that college level of wrestling. So I went from wrestling high school to my first coach out of high school was Rob Herman, who was the Olympic coach at the time. And you got to remember, like, and I'm not bad mouthing anything at all right now, but that era, like the 99, 2000 through 2008, we were one of the top, and in 07, we were the top Greco team in the whole world.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, our Greco team, unfortunately, they're not doing well right now. Hopefully it turns around again, but
yeah,
I know the
restructuring has changed everything. I mean,
I think it's sad, honestly. I feel like USA Wrestling and America, everybody in that wrestling world has dropped the ball on Greco. Unfortunately, that's my vision on it. So
I mean, I competed at a senior level at Greco. I mean, to no success, to very little success, but I had the dream and I pursued it as far as I could go and have such a love for it. And I had a lot of, early, very similar to you, Adam. Like I can't wait to read your book, but I needed a mentor, and I had a teacher that came into my life at the perfect time when I was at that crossroads, and wrestling was a part of it. And she just knew I had to have energy somewhere, and it gave me a path. But with that, and this isn't about me, but I only bring this gentleman up because you know him. But ultimately, I was able to go to a wrestling camp held by Steve Frazier, the first ever Olympic gold medalist in Greco-Roman. And I met that guy at 14, and I go, that's who I want to be. So, I understand, I identify with what you said. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Frazier was, I had Rob Herman and Steve Mays. I don't know if you remember Steve Mays. He was on the 2000 Olympic team. Yeah. That was my first look at and now when I started on the Navy team, I was the worst guy on the Navy team again. I was the worst guy.
It's amazing. Your journey there too, though. Please share. Yeah.
Well, I was the worst guy who made the team, if that makes sense. So out of the 10 weight classes, I was definitely probably the weakest link. But I feel like I was one of the youngest ones. I had never wrestled Greco in my life.
Oh my God.
But, I was one of the worst ones. I feel like it was kind of the same thing. If I would have put a year. So I wrestled with the Navy for 5 years, 4 of which Rob Herman was my main coach. And I would go back to a smaller team called SOPAC in San Diego, California in the off season. Okay. And I had some good training partners and friends there. The training partners and friends were more of the coaches of that club. There was a captain that oversaw it, but he was a great guy, but I don't think he really taught wrestling. He would do conditioning and stuff, and he oversaw it. But I had Division I wrestlers that kind of, there's a guy, Kurt Kyle, there who kind of ran it. Grant Whitmer. I don't know if you know some of these guys that they wrestled through the Naval Academy, and they were Division I wrestlers. And, so I would learn from those guys. Yeah. And then there was some guys on our team that were absolute studs, and some of them you might not even heard of because they had the Navy to worry about. And, sometimes we had a guy, Mark Gaskell, who one of the most talented guys I ever saw wrestle, but the Navy pulled him to do his Navy job. And so it's hard,
Yeah. But it's I considered it, but exactly that. There was, even if you went to Army or the Marines, you still have a job you're in the military, Yeah. It's a very interesting way to go.
And actually so just fast forward a little bit, but
sure.
I kind of started off in the Navy just like I did in high school. I was the worst kid, the worst man. I was 18 wrestling grown men. They were 10 years older than me. One guy was younger that I wrestled that was a stud, and he just kicked my butt. His name was Josh Hall. I remember that. Yeah. But then I was wrestling Mike Van Arsdale, Dan Hicks,
my God.
Bobby Lashley,
Legend.
Dominic Black.
And you had all the big guys. Yeah. Heavyweight.
I had all
Were you
these
96?
I was 96.
Yeah. Wow.
And all these guys that were just, you know, and I apologize because I know I'm leaving some out. There's definitely more, but needless to say, I walked in and I was definitely in the wrong place. You know, I would say I was in the right place, just at the wrong time in my life.
Yeah.
I was still a little kid wrestling men.
Yes.
And kind of progressed the same way my next year. I think Rob mentioned to me, he's like, yeah, you're the most improved I've seen. Kind of did the same path. And then by like year 3, 4, and 5, I was one of the top guys.
Yeah.
Year 3, and then year 4 and 5, I was probably the top guy, top 1 or 2 guys on the team.
Yeah.
And I just worked my butt off. You know, I worked.
Yeah.
People say like, what did you do? And I said, literally from that year, my freshman year in high school, for the next 12 years, I trained, minus maybe boot camp. That was probably the only time I took off of that time, but I probably 12 years straight of doing 2 or 3 practices a day, 5, 6 days a week. You know, I'd usually take a day off a week. Sundays was usually kind of our day off, but I just kept on going and had good mentors. And I made it a point, you know, to be the hardest worker in the room, no matter what room I was in. And it just kind of paid off down the road.
It's
there's
amazing.
a lot more to it, but you know,
of course. Yeah. And I can't wait to read the detail in the book too, and learn more, and maybe this is a silly question, and you've gone on to achieve so much more since then too, which is awesome, because a lot of people look, they can exclamation point and that's the end of the story in some regard, but you are anyway, we'll get to it. You've achieved so much since, but the question was like, man, at that point, just knowing you came from a single mother, like not in a fluid background, like you had good mentors and stuff, but you went to the Olympics and you medaled and you came home. I know it may sound like a silly question, but was like your mom just like ecstatic? I mean, this had to be a dream come true for your whole family, I imagine, right?
Yeah. So
yeah.
I, you know, looking back, I wish that I would have realized in the moment, Olympic trials, 2004, I wasn't going to be the top guy. You know, I was there. I ended up being 4th that year. I lost to make the national team. I lost for the 3rd place match to a guy who I had beaten one time in my career, but it was a guy that I looked up. His name was Dan Hicks. My first couple. Yeah. He was the first Greco. He was like one of my first Greco matches.
Okay.
He was so much better than me when I was 18 that he teched me and pinned me.
Oh,
he
no.
teched me, and right before he teched me, he's like, okay, I'm going to pin him now for the team points.
Oh.
And like it was, and I believe he's 28 when I was 18, I believe. So we're about a 9 or 10 year difference.
Yeah.
But he was like the guy that I looked up to because he's a Marine. I was Navy. After all this stuff, you get a meet. We all hang out together.
Yeah.
And so he was like a guy that I looked up to. And then in 2000, so 4 years later, that was 2000. 4 years later, I can't remember. I beat him at a tournament. I don't remember if it was nationals or the US nationals before the trials or something like that, but I beat him at a tournament. And I still remember that as being like, that was like one of my big stepping stones. Like I just beat Dan Hicks, who has been top 2 guy in the country for many years. And, but then we came back to the Olympic trials and then he beat me for true thirds. I wasn't actually even upset, you know, because he put his shoes on and retired right after that match.
Wow.
And I looked up to the guy and I was kind of honored, like, hey, I was his last match that he ever wrestled at this level. You know, I clapped my hands and he was just that guy. But so long story short, the support, I had my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, and my mom at that 2004 trials. Mm-hmm. Fast forward 4 years later, I believe I had about 40 friends and family members at the Olympic trials.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was really special. And then, and these guys had been coming to the, you know, I grew up 4 hours away from Vegas and everything was in Vegas back then.
Okay. Yeah.
So they had, from 04 when I was good. And, you know, I take that there's a couple other guys that would support me, even like my first year at nationals, my old high school coaches. Because I had 4 coaches. The one who said, you're not ready for a camp yet. I don't hold that against him. I think he's hard-nosed guy. He left. My main coach that I told you about, And then I had two new coaches that came in, I believe my junior and senior year,
Mm-hmm.
who were more like older brothers to me. And I'm still friends with them. One of them is one of my best friends.
Oh,
To this
cool.
day, I talk to him all the time. The other one's a really good friend. We don't talk as often.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys were there every single year.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And then I had, just the support. Like I wish I would have realized how much support I had.
Yeah.
But then 21 of those people went to China just to watch me wrestle.
Wow.
So I think it was 21. It might've been like 18 but
man, that's huge.
I can't remember
You brought a bus.
I had so much support. So when I won and made the Olympic team, that was huge. And then obviously getting the medal was amazing, to have that much support and like I said, I look back on it now and, that's one of the things that I remember more than, my personal experiences. I just remember like, man, I had some people that really, really cared and backed me. And, especially like my family, but my wife who I met in college, the support it's huge.
Yeah.
So
of course. I'm so glad you had it. It's amazing. Yeah. That's awesome. Well, transitioning a little kind of, and maybe we'll circle back to some BJJ stuff, but I'm fascinated by this. Watching some interviews a few years ago and stuff, you were a super enthusiastic police officer. And then I read and I go, oh, wait, now he's like a SWAT team captain. He's crushing it. And I'm like, wait, now firefighter. So you are Captain America. How did all of that happen? When did you find, I guess, the desire to start pursuing all of these things, and where are you still currently involved in any of those?
Yes, actually. Okay. So in high school, really, I come from, on my mom's side, every brother, she had 4 brothers. They were all 1 Navy and 3 Marines.
Oh, wow.
So, and then my grandfather, his brother actually died in Pearl Harbor. Mm. My grandfather joined the Marines. It was like 1942 or whatever, right? But I obviously I don't know him, but my grandfather joined the Marine Corps the next day. Wow. 4 of my uncles and all military. One of them became firefighter afterwards. My grandfather retired in LA County. The one that boxed in the Marines. He has 2 sons who are firefighters, both captains, and who's LAPD, and then a daughter who was a firefighter. And then I have another cousin from another brother, my mom's, who is police officer. And they're all older than I am. So
it's a family affair.
It's like community service is huge in my family. I have 4 brothers, 1 full brother and 3 half brothers. All 5 of us went into the military. Wow. And so it wasn't even really a question to me. I knew like I was going to go into the military. Of course, like I had dreams of going, like back at the time I wanted to go to Minnesota and wrestle, but I wasn't good enough. My grades weren't good enough, like none of that stuff. So I wasn't like one of those blue chip college or high school wrestlers. Mm-hmm. And, but I knew I was going to go in the military, and I knew I wanted to be a police or a firefighter afterwards. Wow. I tested for both. Mm-hmm. Right around the same time as I was getting ready for the Olympics. I started testing. Wow. I wanted to be, at the time I wanted to be a cop more. Mm-hmm. And my family, that's all firefighters, like, no, be a firefighter. And my cousins that were cops were like, no, be a firefighter. But I wanted to be a cop. And I just thought it was a better fit for me. Mm-hmm. So I became a cop. I got hired, became a cop. I was on patrol for 4 years, and then SWAT for 4 years. Yeah. And I started about a couple years before I left, I started getting the itch about switching over to being a firefighter. We're in the same pension plan and all that. Yeah. And the 2 things I can say is I'll probably never have a job that was as cool as being on the SWAT team, as far as like adrenaline and the rush and all that, just because it was constant. Yeah. Being a firefighter's got its scary moments like that too. It's just different, and it's not as frequent. Mm-hmm. But I switched. To me personally, it was the best decision I ever made. But I'm glad that I was a cop for 8 years first, because otherwise I would have wondered for my whole life, like,
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
actually am
Yeah.
still a firefighter
Yeah.
still to this day. Yeah.
That's amazing. Man, and what a nightmare to be detained by your Olympic bronze medalist, BJJ black belt. Like, it's just like, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Whatever you need. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What an amazing journey there. So I guess you mentioned earlier that you had, I think, was it cousins that did BJJ? Is that what ultimately kind of opened that door up for you?
Yeah. So the cousin of, so my cousin, his dad was the retired captain boxer.
Okay.
He,
The Marine. Yeah.
he went into and so my cousin actually joined the Marines right out of high school,
Mm-hmm.
as well. And he's a firefighter captain for LA County.
Oh, cool.
And he's a Jiu Jitsu police and fire games. He's won it. I can't tell you, I'm probably gonna butcher it 10 times. He's a black belt. He's a legit good. I mean, he's at 41 now, but he's still, he's still one of the guys that I'm like, man, he's a badass, right? Like,
Yeah,
I don't know. But yeah, so it's kind of part of, I don't want to say it's in our family, because it's really, there's only 3 of us that do jujitsu, my brother, my cousin, and me. And actually one of my other cousin's son is 18 and he's doing it now too, which is kind of cool. So it's starting to, more and more people, I know it's becoming more popular too, but
for sure.
Yeah.
You've had a lot of success yourself, though. I mean, a no-gi world champion, but I've seen some of your highlights of your instructionals online, some of your upper body takedowns and stuff. And it's awesome. And it's, for someone like me who had a wrestling background and a little Greco too, you really helped me bridge a gap there. Because, I was like, so it's very helpful for me, but I'm sure for everybody it would be. But to that end, I mean, did you enjoy that process, the instructionals and that good stuff?
Yeah. And I still, I still want to produce more of them.
Okay.
It's just kind of the timing and finding like the right topic. I don't want to just do instructionals to produce mass, like
just to try and stay relevant.
I'd rather have like 5 good ones than like 20 that I don't put enough time into.
Yeah.
And so I would like to do a few more. And just, the last one I did was kind of how I use my wrestling for gi jiu-jitsu, which I thought that one was kind of cool, and that one was fun to do.
Ooh, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, but
you're a good teacher. I feel like you're a really good communicator. In the upper body one I saw, you're very good at steps, I think.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I never actually coached until I kind of helped out, but last year I took over my son's. He's 11 right now. I took over as a head coach for the wrestling club that he's been in.
Oh, cool.
The coach before that was a great coach. Actually wrestled at Iowa.
Oh, wow.
And his son is now in high school, so he's not coaching the youth club anymore. He's actually helping out at the high school that we're part of, that our club's kind of, the club through there or whatever. So coaching and having to bring it down to the level of some kids that are like 9, 10, that's like our youngest kids, up through 8th grade. We have a big variety, so it really helps me. Okay, this is how we break this down.
Yeah,
because you have some kids that will, and my son, he's been wrestling since he was like 5, just not anything. We've only practiced twice a week for the seasons only, so like I'm not like pushing him too hard. But if I show him something, he could do it right away. Like he gets the body awareness, where you have some of these kids that never wrestled, so you got to really break it down, and like it makes me think of how to break it down more too, so
yeah, sure.
I think just the experience of coaching is good. And one thing I love about the jiu-jitsu gym that I'm part of, Marcelo Mota, I don't know if you know who he is, but he owns Prime Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, Prime,
and he has
Springs.
Yep. And he has DVDs out too.
Yeah.
But once guys or students of his are like around the purple belt level, he puts a big emphasis on them teaching. And I think it's awesome. And that's something that the wrestling community doesn't really do. You know, you're not really,
No. Yeah,
you're not
no,
like coaching as much when you're an athlete. It's a different culture and environment, but,
very much. Yeah.
you know, I enjoy the coaching part of it now.
Hmm.
So,
Well, let me, and I know we're coming up a little on time, but I wanted to ask you a little bit about this too. So I'm 38. We're relatively the same age. And again, man, I first found you wrestling inspiring, then BJJ inspiring. Lately, more than ever, man, I see you just crushing it in the gym. Like over the past year or so, I've probably consistently been watching you with pull-ups, deadlifts, squats. Like you still go at it, you go hard, you go heavy, but obviously good technique and all. I guess let me first say this. Congratulations on your men's health cover. That's pretty awesome.
yeah,
But like,
that
do you
was
just
actually
still
a
have
few
the
years ago.
passion for this fitness and stuff?
I do. And so when I graduated college and moved out to Colorado Springs to wrestle at the Olympic Training Center, I also became a personal trainer. I got the certifications, and I really thought like, hey, personal training might be something that I could do forever, you know.
Mhm.
But I became a personal trainer at a gym, and I don't want to mention the names because I don't want to
Sure.
put anybody on blast, but I think they're all pretty similar. But it really made me hate the way that personal training is ran at a stereotypical type gym. It's all about the sales, and I'm training, you know, this 80-year-old guy at one time, and then like this 15-year-old boy the next session, and then the next session is a 25-year-old who just got the sessions because they got it with their membership. And the whole goal in the company is just sell,
Right.
make them buy packages, and then you get paid a percentage of those packages.
Right.
And I just felt like, you know, I didn't get into personal training to be a salesman. I got into it because I truly want to help people.
Yeah.
And so strength and conditioning has been something that we talked about earlier. When I joined the gym when I was a freshman in high school, I was self-taught. I didn't have a strength coach in high school. I didn't play football.
Yeah.
So I didn't have, you know, I bought magazines,
Right.
Flex magazine, Men's Health, Muscular, all these bodybuilder style magazines. And I started learning. And then as I got to college, the Navy, the Olympic Training Center, and I had coaches, I learned a lot from them. And then of course I got all the certifications. You know, I think I have 5 different certifications that I don't keep up with them anymore because I'm not training in like a gym, a global gym or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But when I was still a cop, I started online personal training, and then I stopped because it was so busy when I made the transition to being a firefighter, and there was a lot going on. And I just recently, with technology, luckily, there's a great app that I use, True Coach. Okay. And now I'm back to making workout programs for people.
Oh, cool.
I love it. It's a passion of mine. I put a lot of thought and effort into it.
Yes.
And, you know, it's kind of like a small business that I'm trying to go through and do. And, you know, I've been trying to post the reels on Instagram, and I'm not afraid to admit it. I am not good at, you know, I don't have a lot of followers on my social media because they wasn't even around when I was an athlete.
Right.
And there's people who haven't really done anything, but they're really good at self-promoting.
Sure.
And they're like, how do you have 100,000 followers? You know,
right.
But long story short, I'm just trying to put up stuff so people see it. And I would love to help as many people, especially people who are interested in grappling, strength and conditioning, and just getting better. That's my specialty. And then I actually kind of dabbled in a little bit of bodybuilding recently. And so I also have a bodybuilding program that I do now too. And it's just a passion of mine. Like I'm truly passionate about it, and like to be able to reach more people than just the people that go to my specific gym or whatever.
Sure.
So,
well, man, I'm happy to help you in that pursuit. This is the perfect audience for that.
Awesome. Yeah, please
really
do.
You know, it's odd because when I started the show, and man, it was for me, but it's for you. You know, there's never been a guest on this show that is not somebody I sincerely admire. You know, that I don't have a sponsor. This is no one's giving me guests. These are people I reach out to because I look to them, you know, or I did in the past, and they inspired me, you know, and so I follow your content, and don't be so hard on yourself because you're doing great, man, with your posting and your workouts and stuff. It's super motivating to me. And anyway, I say all that to say this. I spent 25 years wrestling, and my dream for a long, long time was just to like make an Olympic team. Like never dreamed about ever placing or anything, but like go to the trials and be relevant. And I never satisfied that dream. But when the show came to life, you're the first wrestler I've ever had on here, which is so crazy to me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which is so crazy. But it's been so many bodybuilders, a lot of BJJ people, because that's who I have more relationships with since wrestling. But I'm glad you're number one. You couldn't have been a better guest.
I am too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Man, you've been inspiring me forever. And I'm so happy to help with that. True Coach, is that right? The app?
That's the app that I use. That's any coach could use that.
Mm-hmm.
Really, so far, my business is just people have contacted me off my Instagram, and that's the best way to do it because I don't have to have a website. I run it off my Instagram. People contact me, and I send them an email, and then I get them set up on my app. It's not my app, but the app.
Yeah,
and it's an awesome way for us to have two-way communication and train. And there's video tutorials, and it's actually a really cool thing. I wish that was there 10 years ago when I first started doing the online stuff. So
yeah, man, that's great.
But
well, I know we're coming up on it. Adam, sincerely, thank you so much. I'm going to read your book, and then I hope we can do this again. I'll probably have another 100 questions for you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me on and any time. So thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Again, this is True Story. John Gibson, today's guest, Adam Wheeler.
Thank you.
Thanks.